Let's be honest, this didn't really feel like a temporary storyline. It feels more like a farewell in slow motion. With Anita's cancer diagnosis front and center, like this entire episode was centered around it, the show may be setting up the cleanest exit possible. Is Beyond the Gates preparing us to say goodbye to Anita for good? Because while the family is mourning this cancer diagnosis, the internet is already reading between the lines. And while Anita is fighting for her life, Kat is drowning her fear in tequila, proving that sometimes the real crisis isn't the disease itself, it's how the next generation is dealing with the truth. Now we're going to jump straight into a first look reaction at Beyond the Gates Season 2, episode number 200. And as I stated before, most of this episode was centered around Anita and everyone dealing with the news of what's going on in the family. And to Vernon and Anita's surprise, Dani showed up at the house with not Andre, but with Bill. And they weren't really pleased about that. So they're just sitting there and they're just kind of dealing with it in their head, taking it all in, until he saw Bill's arm wrap around Dani. And he said, listen, we need to go and get some lemonade. He had to break up that tension because he was probably about to say something. And when they stepped into the foyer, he had to let her know that he was not pleased at all that Andre was not there with her, as opposed to Bill sitting by her side. And she had to kind of explain it away. She tried to explain it away. Oh, well, because of the girls, he has to be here, and because it's our daughters, making excuses. Any excuse to be around Bill, right? I mean, I kind of understand her stance somewhat, but then again, you have a whole husband at home, so you really have to consider moving forward as opposed to, because Bill could have found out this news from somebody else. Like, she doesn't have to be the one that's always front and center when it comes to Bill, right? Just let him find out from the daughters or something. But it just kind of lets us know where her head is and where her heart is as well when it comes to Mr. Hamilton. So while Dani is out there talking to her dad, Bill is in there trying to give advice to Anita, comparing her breast diagnosis to when he had his stroke. He told her to allow the people that are around her, that love and care about her, to help her. He said that having to rely on other people is worse than the illness itself. And even though Anita appeared as if she was accepting his advice, she still has some digs for him. He was talking about, no matter how much he exercised and ate right, the disease still lived in his body and he felt helpless. And she was like, well, yeah, you were running around with a girl half your age. So she had to really get her, she has to get her frustration out some kind of way, no matter how, what her health condition is. She's going to let him know how she feels. So we're back in the foyer with Dani and Vernon, and she's letting him know that he really doesn't have to worry about Bill. And he told her that she needs to lean on her new husband, right, instead of Bill. And I agree 100%. But she's going back and forth again, saying Chelsea and Naomi need both of their parents and yada, yada. And, again, it gives her more of an excuse to be around Bill. Then later on in the episode, she had another talk with Vernon, and she was telling him, I know that I'm your little girl, and but I need you to understand that I'm a grown woman now, and that you can lean on me. You can talk to me, you can cry with me, and just be vulnerable. She let him know that he doesn't really have to be the rock all the time, because at some point it's going to break him down. And then he started reminiscing about all the times and all the things that he had to deal with, right? And all the truth that he had to face and all the battles that he had to overcome. And he let her know that all those battles and things that he went through that with Anita, but now she may not be there to go through it with him because he doesn't really know how to fight cancer. And that's when he broke down. That's when that broke him. Just talking about it really brought tears to his eyes. And of course, Dani was there for him. So that was a really tender moment in this episode. And this is bringing us to another storyline that is going to, I'm sure, be very, very popular, because as it was with Dani, because Kat is developing this reliance on the tequila, the alcohol. She knows that Anita is the matriarch of their family. Like, she's the backbone of it all. And she's having a hard time dealing with that. Not only that, the fact that her mom may be not infected, but carrying the gene, which means that her and Martin may also have the gene. So she's having a hard time dealing with that. And I'm sure that the alcohol is giving her some sort of relief, temporary relief. Yeah, she can't seem to leave the bottles alone in this episode. And it looks like Ted, her dad, and Martin are going to try to convince her to get tested anyway, but she'd just rather not know. She's like, if you can't really do anything about it, I'd rather not know. But they're going to spend some time in this episode trying to convince her to do it, or talk about trying to convince her to come around. And of course, Martin is very concerned about everybody. He wants to primarily be there for his granddad. And Smitty told him, listen, your job is to worry about Vernon and I'll worry about you. Basically just being there, supportive as he should be. I need to circle back to Kat for just a moment, because Ted called her because she didn't pick up the phone when he called her earlier, and she made an excuse. Oh, I was with Tomas, we were at the bar and I just didn't pick up the phone. So she brushed him off initially. Then when Tomas called to check on her, she brushed him off again. So she is dealing with this very hard. And I really think that this is going to, compound the problem, clearly. And I see Ted and Bill trying to weasel their ways back into this family. And it's very unfortunate because they're going to take full advantage of the situation where everybody is vulnerable. But I mean, everybody has like one eye open when it comes to them, which is a good thing. But we already see Bill trying to weasel his way in, giving them hugs, showing up every time there's a crisis in the family. But this whole time he has his eye on Dani, and Ted is seeking advice from Shanice, his new interest, his new friend, quote unquote, trying to get advice on how to weasel his way back into the family. And she told him, listen, I may not be the best person to get advice from. I mean, because, she's interested in him. Apparently, if you're kissing him on New Year's Eve, right? So, there is some interest there. So why would you go to her for advice about your ex-wife? And, he's, labeling her as a friend, but clearly it's more than that. Like, you don't kiss your friends in the mouth. Now, on the other hand, she did give him some good medical advice. She was basically breaking down the odds of the girls having the gene, and, just telling him that she really needs to be tested and not to ignore it and push it under the rug. So Ted is going to do all that he can to try to convince her to get tested. So Bill made it back to the office where he ran into Tomas, and, they just kind of chopped it up in the hallway a little bit, talking about the diagnosis, of course, that's on everybody's mind on this episode. Then when he went into his office, he saw his wife, Haley, there. She's pissed off because nobody's at work except her. And, of course, she couldn't be by Bill's side because all it does is cause tension when he's with Dani and the family. And, Bill doesn't know what the hell he wants to do. So she's frustrated. And I'm so glad that he's finally seeing that Haley thinks that she's in competition with the Duprees. Like, girl, there is no competition. There never was. Bill is just stupid. So she was a little pissed because, he's running behind Dani again. But I'm just glad that he did raise his voice at her and told her there is no competition. This is not a competition. I'm so glad because, she's trying to get rid of him. And he needs to wake up really fast. But that's really all that happened on this episode that's, worth talking about, in my opinion. If you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. And if you're a fan of Beyond the Gates like I am, then go ahead and sub to the channel for more videos just like this one. Thank you so much for tuning in to Ruthless TV today, you guys, and I'm going to see you on the next one.